Tonight on Discovering, we're trout fishing along the shores of Lake Superior with Keweenaw Charters.
These fish are proving to be very, very migratory, where they're being caught all around the lake.
And we'll hit the woods for some turkeys in the fog.
They flew down right into our lap, right into our setup.
Stick around, that's all tonight right here on Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
On a sunny spring day in the UP, nothing beats an afternoon on a boat. So I met up with Travis and Jane White from Keweenaw Charters for some trout fishing along the Lake Superior shoreline.
You know, this time of year we're basically looking for the warmest water we can find. You know, and on these beautiful sunny days like this, typically that's going to be in your shallow areas where you've got kind of a stain to the water. You know, you've got creek mouths dumping in, blowing in a lot of sediment. So, you know, basically those fish are kind of drawing in towards that warmer water where they're going to have a little bit faster metabolism and a little more likely to find some feed. So right now we've got some smelt running, and we're hoping that we can kind of basically imitate the smelt with these jerk baits, and that's going to kind of hopefully allow us to catch anything from a splake to a lake trout to a coho to a brown trout. So we've got a variety of fish out here this time of year. We got a little bit of an east wind today, which nobody loves up here, but we're going to kind of just stay within this breakwater and hopefully we'll be able to catch a few. And one of the cool things about the Keweenaw Peninsula is that within a 50-mile radius of Houghton, which is about an hour drive if you're pulling your boat, we've got over 250 miles of shoreline, and almost all of that shoreline has nice structure that's going to have fish this time of year. So basically we're just throwing things like this. It's a shallow diving jerk bait, and we're going to basically be imitating, you know, a smelt or a forage fish. And most of these fish are pretty hungry this time of year, so you know, if we get it in the right area and we're finding fish, you know, they're pretty likely to hit it. You can also throw spoons, you can throw, you know, spinners. It really doesn't matter too much, but it's more important that you find the areas that are holding fish. So we're going to use the electric motor to pull ourselves along at about a half mile to a mile an hour. And if we encounter any sort of fish, we're going to really slow down and kind of focus on that smaller area. So I'm just going to basically follow the shoreline and start throwing casts, and we'll see what happens. Fishing like a 7-foot rod. It's a medium action, and basically it's got a nice fast tip, so I can make these little twitches and pause that bait, and that basically kind of imitates like a dying smelt, you know, that twitching and pausing. You really don't see a lot of people casting out here. It's typically trolling when you think of fishing on Lake Superior, but this is one of the things we like to do this time of year because of that opportunity where the fish are relatively accessible to just someone fishing with one rod and one bait. It's fishing at its simplest form, and we just love doing it. For one, when you hook up a fish, it's just extremely exciting, you know, catching them with that one rod and doing that hand-to-hand combat versus having all that gear out there that you've got to worry about and all those opportunities for that fish to get off. I think that's one of the coolest things about doing this type of fishing is that you're so close to the shoreline, you know, versus being miles out, that you see all these neat little things that you just don't see when you're trolling offshore in the summer. You know, you can get in and see all these little nooks and crannies, you see wildlife, you see some beautiful scenery, you know, geology, there's some really neat rock formations, there's, you know, big eagle's nest in the trees. Drastic change of scenery here, but sometimes you gotta change things up. All right, warm water. Ooh, he's feisty. All right, Jane, you got a net back there? There we go. Okay, nice. This is actually a little rainbow. I know in the water I saw it. It looked a little bit like a brown, but this is actually a small steelhead. You can see sort of that pinkish colored stripe on him, and he's got just a little bit smaller spotting on his body than a brown trout, which you can see extends all the way down into his tail. Oof, away he goes. It's really hard to beat catching a fish casting. It's just the most simple, basic way of fishing, and there's only certain times a year where you can really have a great chance of being successful doing this on Lake Superior, and that's going to be your spring and fall time, primarily, where these fish are all concentrated in shallow water. Right now, you can see we haven't even made it past the end of the marina here, so we're only in about 6 or 7 feet of water here, and the reason we started so close to the launch is because this water is significantly warmer than the open lake out behind us. So one thing after we catch a fish on these jerk baits, it's really important to take a quick look at your hooks, because a lot of times what those fish like to do is kind of twist and roll in the net, and that will actually bend and straighten some of these hook points. You can see we've got one there that's kind of out of whack, and I'm just going to make a few quick adjustments now with the pliers and get that bait back into working order.
Trav, what color are you fishing?
That was on a purple and silver, so kind of smelt looking on the side and purple on top.
Mine's purple too, just not silver, so maybe I need to switch.
Got one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nice fish. Wow, nice one, Jane. Wow, look at that. Oh, wow. Looks like a big old splake. There.
Wow.
Bring him up here so we can get the hook out and get a closer look at him.
Very nice splake there.
Yeah, they've been planting these splake in Keweenaw Bay now for several years, and you know, these fish can live 5, maybe even 10 years potentially.
Splake is a cross between a brook trout and a lake trout.
So brook trout are called speckled trout. So a speckled trout combined with a lake trout would be a splake.
What we like to do with these jerk baits is not like a slow, steady retrieve that I usually do with like a Cleo or a spoon. Kind of reel a little bit, jerk, pause for a couple seconds, and that's when it bit on this one too.
Sure.
Kind of nice.
Yeah, a lot of people when they pick up a rod, their instinct is just to cast it out and reel it back in, and that's one thing when you're jerkbait fishing that just doesn't work. What happens when you just cast it out and reel it in is you'll see fish chase it, you'll feel fish bump into it, but you're not going to have those aggressive takes where they get that bait well into their mouth like that fish had it.
And when I am doing it the same for quite a bit and I'm not getting any response, sometimes I speed it up and I make the jerks a little bit more aggressive and then do a couple more pauses in there as well, but just to vary it up a little bit, and that kind of piques their interest a little bit more and makes them more aggressive. I was actually doing it a little bit more aggressively there.
Awesome, well let's do that again.
That sounds good. Actually took me quite a while to like learn the technique, and he would be catching all of the fish, and then after I finally got the hang of it, then I was starting to catch fish. Now it's true competition between us.
Oh, there's one. All right, I just did a little pause and this fish just nailed it. I don't know what it is. It feels a little different than the last one. Pulling pretty good. And it's staying down. Boy, it's really pulling good. Oh boy. No kidding, that looks a lot like that pike. Well, that's a nice fish,
yeah.
isn't it? Scoop 'em, all right. Well, that's an unexpected catch. Now, we gotta be on the lookout for a lure that we just lost to a pike. That was a very lucky catch. We're using a 15-pound leader, and you can see there's the knot right there. So we are very lucky that we got him in. So we'll give you a quick look and we'll get her on her way. You can see this fish is really beat up. It's probably been spawning here in some of these shallow marshy areas along the bay. And that's, you know, those pike spawn in the spring. A lot of times when you get these bigger fish, they're all females. Woo! Been fighting that east wind all day, and finally we've got a little break here. See if we can make it count and put a few more fish in the net. All right, so this was a little tiny spot that we kind of knew about here, and what we were looking for was something a little shallower and rocky with a little bit of silty water that was just a little bit warmer than the rest of the bay here. And sure enough, there was a fish right up in that corner. The water was about a degree warmer than everything else we've fished so far. So sometimes that little difference makes a big difference. There we go. Nice. Thank you, James. That's a great looking fish. Boy, that almost looks like a fall fish, doesn't it? So you can see why a splake often gets confused for a brook trout because of those bright fins. But one differentiator, if you look closely at the side of this fish, you can see there's some red dots and yellow dots. If you look really close at those red dots, they're just slightly different color. So that's a telltale that it's not a lake trout.
That looks like a small brown, I think.
What have you got?
Yeah. You got the brown?
You have the brown?
It bit me and then...
Wow, you did it.
Nice cruising brown, cruising the shoreline. He has his adipose fin clipped, which means he was stocked in Wisconsin. So this little guy came all the way from Wisconsin. So that means the stocking efforts have been pretty successful if we're catching them all the way up in Keweenaw Bay. Well, it's cool to catch 4 species with the same technique on the same lure, fishing the same area. That's so cool.
So in the last hour, this crazy weather we've been dealing with all day has finally kind of subsided for the moment. We've been dealing with a nasty east wind, and it was coming straight down the bay, white capping. So, you know, the first spot we tried this morning, we were getting beat up, and the fish were super negative. So we made a big move, brought the boat down to a different spot, but an hour or so after we got out here, the wind shifted and started coming more out of the south, and this bay laid right down. It's gotten warmer, it feels better out here, and there's been a night and day difference in the fish behavior in terms of biting. You know, we've hooked as many fish in the last hour as we did in the first several hours of fishing today. What have we got?
Oh, it's coming in.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh.
That is a nice fish, James. Wow.
Great. Look,
Nice job. He nailed it. Your drag just went phew. Heard that one. So this is another one where the adipose has been clipped off, and that's how we know these fish have come from Wisconsin, where they're doing a pretty heavy stocking program right now in about the last 10 or so years. And these fish are proving to be very, very migratory, where they're being caught all around the lake. It's really incredible.
Springtime is not only a great time to get out fishing, but a great time for hunting as well. Here's a look at a successful early morning turkey hunt.
Got out here this morning, Joe and Vinny seen these birds go to roost, and we decided to sneak right through the field. It's a thick fog this morning.
So last night, Vince and I were out here, and we were on a large group of birds that went away from us, north from us. And then just before dark, we noticed this group going in on the power line, going to roost. So came in this morning, fog did us a huge favor hiding us, snuck in on them, sat up.
We were right on top of them, set our decoys out. I dropped back a little ways and just did soft yelps. Pretty much let the birds do the rest. Just some soft tree yelps, and that's all it took.
They started waking up. Only got one gobble out of them thanks to Darren's calling. Start hearing them come out of the trees, look up, and there's 12, 14 of them flying right over our heads, landing in the field, and
they flew down right into our lap, right into our setup.
Found the first longbeard. Couldn't get a good shot at it because the hens decided to walk in front. Tuck off of that one, got to the next one on the left, and gave me a nice clean shot, took it, and down he went.
One big one.
I was on the big one to the right.
Yeah.
And then two hens stepped right in front of it. So I had to switch to the one on the left, and it was like, I saw the other hen run. It's like, now or never. Find the head and shoot.
How cool was that? I could hear him. Was that him putting on the ground?
The one on the ground was putting. I don't think she liked being there alone.
That's all I heard.
Yeah, they came right over our heads.
Yeah, he's got big spurs.
Look at how much of the beard is cut off and stuff.
Yeah, you probably shot him off.
I probably did.
You pummeled him though.
But look at his head. I mean, I nailed him.
You can hear that was cool.
So then we found a nice little surprise sticking out of his right leg. Nice little stick. Been growing in his leg for a while. Got a layer of skin over it and everything. So it's kind of an interesting little
three-legged turkey.
Three-legged turkey. I like it.
It was a pretty good hunt. Actually, really good hunt. It was cool to see him light out of them trees right into our setup. But
the 906 Outdoors turkey crew was back at it as well with another successful hunt.
We had permission on this property, so we just swung on in. Ethan gave it a few calls. He answered to the slate, and not long after, that hen flew right across the field here and came right in. This must have been our nesting grounds. It's kind of like a clear cut here. A lot of good cover. We set up in the shade, and we had a decent cover because he circled around us. Complete 180.
He was 20 yards behind us.
Right.
We just couldn't get a shot. Too much brush.
But he would not leave that hen at all. She was kind of directing him through. He would sit there and gobble, and I really tried to rake some leaves, act as realistic as possible, as if there was a hen nesting over here. So he showed some interest, but he kind of circled around, and Ethan could finally get a shot, and he took it, and it was about a 30-yard shot, and we got him. It was pretty cool. Pretty crazy how fast it could happen like that.
Yeah.
nice.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We've been hunting pretty hard for a week, and it's just been challenging, but these birds it's starting to warm up. It's like 55 right now. It's perfect. And these birds are starting to break up a little bit more. And the hunting's been getting a lot better. So crazy, but sometimes this is how it works out.
Good hunt. Thanks for helping on the calls.
Oh yeah. That was fun. So
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week right here on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.